Plume. I'm tired of working on the tome for the evening. Can you give me a demonstration of your magic? I want to see it. Ether set down the tome on the library table and looked at Plume expectantly. His wings looked like they had deflated as they drooped behind his back. Is this going to become a common occurrence? We only just started covering the first section of neurobiology. Should I have even bothered with asking for Yarrow's assistance if Ether is giving up already? Perhaps he just needs inspiration. Plume decided to indulge him. Certainly. She drew upon her sorcery to levitate the sturdy bookshelf to their side. The longer she dangled it, the more drained she felt, especially after a full day working in the mines. No, I want to see your combative magic. I want to see fireballs flinging around. I would never risk setting a fire in the library. Aside from risking the first editions and unique collections, does he not realize how dangerous that could be? She glanced around the tight spaces between the shelves, as if considering the proposition. Is there a good place outside we can go? Flames are more exciting against a dark backdrop. His dragonfly wings perked up. I know the perfect place. Follow me. He stood and led her by the wrist. Plume resented him steering her, but she was relieved to avoid endangering the books. She followed, unconcerned with the materials they left behind from the lesson. I'll clean them up after this. He dragged her into the neighboring tower and to the Cathedral of the Renowned. As he climbed the steps to the cathedral's highest platform, Plume struggled to keep pace. Curiously, she glanced at his legs as he scaled the steps before her. His shapely calves bulged against his tailored trouser pant legs. Little surprise there. She heaved another breath as her thighs screamed against the escalation. Unlike the previous time she had climbed the cathedral's numerous stairs, she lacked adrenaline motivating her upwards. Without it, she barely pressed on. Come on, Plume, hurry up. I don't get as much practice as you do. Surely you adhere to a regimented exercise routine as prescribed by angelism's doctrine. Ether smirked from a half flight of stairs ahead of her. I don't practice that tenet as well as I should. I'm usually exhausted by the end of my workdays. Sorcery drains you physically? Not exactly, she said as she paused to catch her breath. Magical, mental, and physical energy stores are separate, but if your body is exhausted from a full day of physical labor, then you wouldn't want to write a sermon afterwards, would you? I can't empathize with that. Ether proceeded up the stairs again. What am I getting myself into? Still, Plume followed. When they reached the top platform, the guard opened the gate for Ether, but flicked a nervous glance between him and Plume. She's coming in as my personal guest. Tiny fires singed the edges of Ether's wings initially, but calmed after they were permitted entry. Plume smiled at the guard as she passed into the area typically reserved for the castle's residing high priest. Ether guided her away from the sloping edge, past an open study, and through a passage leading to the tower's balcony. The city illuminated the unembellished stone handrail, wrought iron benches, and demonic statues crouching along the tower's lowered tiered roof lines. Ether plopped into one of the benches. Well? In the night shadows, Plume assumed that he wouldn't see her eyes roll. She claimed the bench across from Ether, the hard metal pressed into her back uncomfortably, but when she shifted, it hadn't helped. She refocused within to draw on her sorcery and conjured her fireballs between her hands. She moved the fiery spheres as though she juggled them, but they floated far from her palms. Ether jolted back when the flames breathed life, but soon lost interest in the orbs, and his wings wilted again. When she heated the fire to a hotter blue color, it caught his attention again for a heartbeat. Can you turn them green next? He asked. I'd need to visit the alchemist's laboratory to obtain metallic powder, but I could. Oh, can you do anything else? She elongated the flames into flowing ribbons and twirled them into shifting patterns. Firelight coated Ether's eyes as he followed the streams wherever she directed them. When she decided she had entertained him long enough, she shot the flames upwards until they couldn't see them any longer. She quelled the fires in the upper atmosphere. This was a great idea. I never would have thought to come here, Ether said as he reclined onto the uncomfortable bench. Without the flames, Plume could barely register Ether, so she lit a smaller stationary blaze between them. Why's that? I'd imagine this is one of the best spots in the castle. The view of the markets must be amazing during the day. Ether stared transfixed on the new burning orb. His wings had shrunken out of sight. The forest is agreeable to look upon, but I mostly hide from conviction out here. Is that often? Depends on the time of rotation. With the festival of the Wyvern approaching in a few turns of the moons, his beleaguering over writing the sermon will become more frequent soon. It's nice to sneak away. I can understand why he would want a sermon that's delivered to all the kingdom's monarchs to be perfect. Ether didn't respond, but concerning icy shards replaced his healthier wing types. Plume tried again. Are the two of you close? I've known him the longest of anyone in the castle, aside from Panite and Admonition, I suppose. Does that count? Ether huffed. Does the High King have any relatives living here? It's just the High Queen and their newborn, Prince Jet. Does Ether only know adults? Does he have any friends his age? Plume was glad he was starting to drop his arrogant airs. Do you know many of the mages? He shook his head. Not personally. I see them in council meetings, but I wouldn't say that I'm close to any of them, or to any one. I suppose it's intentional to separate me so that I never seem grounded. If I'm portrayed as an untouchable religious figure, then my position will retain the respect of the realm. Is he proud of that? Plume considered his insight. Is that what you want? I've had enough attempts on my life that I don't like walking around openly, so, in part, it is a necessary precaution. But in terms of what I want to wield the authority that my title should grant me, that the masses believe I have. Finally, his icicle-like wings melted into feathers again, but they were those of a bird of prey, indicating his sense of motivation. How would you wield such influence? Plume asked. Mostly just interject my opinion during council meetings. I have ideas, but I'm overshadowed. For as much as everyone claims to respect me, they never act like it in practice. I can occasionally include input for the meal served when one of the other monarchs visits, but that's it. And I'm not even invited to high council meetings. Can you influence changes through your sermons? Conviction would reject those sorts of additions immediately. What if you spoke from your heart rather than a piece of parchment? He grimaced. I couldn't imagine how much trouble I'd get in. Everything has to go through conviction. He has to ensure that whatever I say doesn't have the potential to divide the realm. I can only deliver slight variations on generic messages. A united faith, a united realm, after all. It sounds like conviction is just as insufferable as admonition. Plume shrugged. If it were me, I would say what I wanted. I know, I don't have the luxury. I only have domain over part of myself. And you want to protect that part with the tome, she added, bobbing her head a couple times. Exactly. I think I understand him better. Plume stood up and offered him a hand. Let's get back to work then.